Hey, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar with the Jerusalem Press Club in cooperation with the Forum for the Missing Families, Forum for Families of Missing Israelis Kidnapped on October 7th. Today with us, we have Yonatan Zeigen, who is the son of Vivian Silver, herself kidnapped on that Saturday. She's both an Israeli and Canadian citizen and a peace activist, long history of trying to reconciliate with the Palestinian community. And we're here to hear Yonatan and what he has to say. And we'll take.
Recording in progress.
Sorry, I was muted. First we'll take. Sorry, we're having some technical difficulties. If everybody can just mute themselves when they come on, that would be helpful. Thank you. Before we open for questions, Yonatan, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your mother so we can get to know her from around the world. Sorry, Yonatan, you're muted.
Hello. My mother, Vivian Silver, she was born and raised in Winnipeg, Canada. She joined the Habonim youth movement. She was active in that growing up, and after studying a year in Israel when she was around 18, so she formed a group in New York, and they came together 50 years ago, 73.
Recording in progress.
And they established together a kibbutz Gezer. And after a while, that kibbutz kind of lost its the original group dismantled, so they moved, my father and my mother moved to Kibbutz Be'eri at 1990. That's where me and my brother grew up. Kibbutz Be'eri is right on the border with Gaza, and actually all, up until then, but also before, all of her adult life, she dedicated herself to social issues, gender equality, justice for impoverished groups, and living in Be'eri, she started to be involved with peace organizations. Her main career was she was the co-CEO of an organization called Ajik Nisped. They worked a lot up until the second Intifada broke. They worked a lot in Gaza. They had projects there. When relations had to stop with Gaza after the second Intifada, they put an emphasis on the Bedouin community in Israel. And aside from that, she was always a volunteer, a public speaker. She organized encounter groups. After she retired, she was very much involved in the organization Women Wage Peace. They had a big international event just before the war broke, and now. She would also drive Palestinian patients from Gaza to Israeli hospitals through an organization called Road to Recovery. So she was a very busy woman and doing good. And she was also a wonderful mother and grandmother to 4 grandchildren. Very active in her kibbutz committees and leadership roles.
Okay, thank you. She sounds like a wonderful woman. Yonatan, what do you know about that day in terms of, where she was, how she was taken, and were you able to speak to her at all?
Yes, I woke up I live in Tel Aviv. Left the kibbutz a few years ago. I live in Tel Aviv, and I woke up to the sound of alarm at 6:30 in the morning. I didn't pay it much attention because we're kind of accustomed to it in Israel. And but then we started understanding that
There's a turnout.
that there's an incursion that was very unusual, never happened.
Just one.
And I started being in touch with her to understand what's going on. It was confusing because, we understood that Hamas got in Israel, but we couldn't grasp the incapability of the Israeli army to defend the civilians. So we were talking, we were still kind of joking around. We thought the next minute is gonna end, but it didn't. And at some point we understood that this isn't going in the right direction, and we started to say goodbye because we realized these are probably our last words to each other. She wrote me. At some point we stopped talking on the phone because she had to be quiet so she won't be found, but she was hiding in her house alone. And she wrote me that they're inside the house. And we wrote messages of, of love and parting, and she went silent.
And have you heard anything from the authorities about whether she's supposed to be among the captives? Have you heard anything from anybody?
After a while, the government seems like the government started to work after a week or so, and I was approached by a representative of the Israeli headquarters, the Gal Hirsch headquarters. The only indication anybody has
Sorry, Yonatan, go ahead.
The only indication anybody has is that her phone was geolocated in Gaza. No other information or indication, like in videos or anybody else that saw something.
And with all the contacts she's had over the years, particularly in her work with Palestinians, have you been able to make any contact with people there that might have some sort of information or otherwise?
These are discrete efforts we're making. There's no, it's not concrete. We have the fact that I'm talking as if she is being held there is because of those efforts, but so it's not certain, but we have reason to believe.
Okay, that you can keep it at that. Before I wrap up with our own questions, I will invite journalists to raise their hand if they can, if they want to ask specific questions, or alternatively write them in the chat box. We're here to ask what we can. In the meantime, Bell has a question. Bell True from the Independent, I think. Please state your point, your outlet as well when you speak. Thank you.
Yes, it's Bell True from the Independent. Thank you so much for talking to us, Yonatan. I'm so sorry. I can't imagine how difficult this time is for you. I just wanted to ask if, you had any, in terms of the sort of hostage release negotiations, if you had any thoughts on what you would be comfortable with, and also if you could speak a bit about your concerns about your mother, given the sort of heavy bombardment of Gaza, and your thoughts on that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about everything, and my basic belief is that military actions don't solve anything. So the minute I understood that people are being held there, I thought that the right thing to do is to push immediately for diplomacy and to understand what the leverage they wanted when they took them, and doing that, striking a deal. I think that can also be the first step in the road to an alternative reality. If we are able to negotiate and to make deals about the captives, I think it can be a milestone in a way to the future. So I think everything should be on the table, and that bringing them home should be the first priority. And when that happens, because I'm not sure that is the case, if they are the first priority, then I believe that it could happen. Now I'm afraid, because it seems like the military option is more prevalent for a government, and I fear that it would harm the hostages, that it's not the moral thing to do, and that it won't bring us any closer to a better reality in the aftermath.
Thank you very much for answering my questions so eloquently. Thank you.
Thank you, Yonatan. In the meantime, I'll ask another question. Have you been able to work together with friends or MPs or even members of the Canadian government to try to work through this together, considering your mother's affiliation to Canada?
Yes. We organized, guess it was on Sunday or Monday, we organized a work group of our friends and colleagues, and we reached out very strongly in North America and all over the world, and the reactions were it's emotionally moving, but it seems it's impressive, the amount of involvement and investment people have, and the Canadian government as well. We have connections, official connections with the foreign ministry, and everybody there is, they are reassuring that they're doing everything they can. I don't know how much power Canada has, but they are. It seems like they're very much invested in doing everything they can.
Okay, we have another question from a journalist saying that the Israeli defense minister said last night that Israel needs to hit Hamas very hard in order to pressure them to make a deal, to be willing to negotiate. If you recall, earlier on in the war, Hamas rejected all deals. Do you agree with this conclusion, that in order to make them come to the negotiation table, they first need to be hit hard?
I'm not a policymaker, I'm not a strategist, not a military guy. I think that logic is what is that's the intuitive logic of humanity. using force. I don't think it's true. I think there are creative ways to put pressure. I think international involvement can create more solutions. I think Gaza has been hit very hard since this beginning of the war. I don't know that it could be that it can lead us to an effective solution. I mean, Qatar is involved, Egypt is involved. If the United States, there are enough leverages to use outside of more dead soldiers and more dead civilians, and that's my opinion.
And if your mother were here with you today on the other side of the fence watching what's unfolding, would she agree with what you're saying, or do you think she would have a different approach, or what do you think?
The mother I knew before October 7th, I'm sure she would agree and speak loudly about it. I don't know what's left of her, of that woman, before October 7th. If she'll come back, I don't know what her opinions would be and how she would react to this unimaginable trauma. And it's not only her, she doesn't have a home to come back to because it's burned to the ground, and her whole community is devastated, and so much death. So I can't say.
That's a fair assessment. One journalist is requesting from the Washington Post if you can just spell the name of the organization she had worked in up until the second Intifada, not the current organization Women Wage Peace, but the previous organization working in Gaza. If you can spell the name of the organization for her.
I see Julia wrote it on the chat.
Perfect. Okay, so you're quicker than I am. Thank you. The Negev Institute for Strategies of Peace and Development, NISPED. Another question from Canadian TV Global News. Okay, what went through your mind when you saw Yocheved Lifshitz testimony when she returned home to Israel?
First of all, I was happy for her and her family that she returned. She was my teacher in high school. And I was pretty hopeful after her testimony because it seemed like after the brutal kidnapping, she was, at least she felt she was being held in relatively good conditions. That's what I understood from her testimony. So it made me feel a little better. But the uncertainty is in every direction because you don't know who's holding who, and it probably depends on your captor's character, how you're being held, and they're not. I don't think they were together.
Okay, I see that. I don't want to take too much up of your time. I'm sure you're not sleeping a lot as it is. I'll just ask the last question in the chat box before wrapping it up. Do you believe that your mother is more at risk because of the escalation of the offensive this weekend, or is the circumstance similar?
It's hard to say. I do fear that she's more at risk because also on the part of the IDF, you can't use you can't be soldiers are not surgeons. They can't save one person from I don't think it works like that. War is chaotic, and also from the side of Hamas, that they took the prisoners as leverage, and if they lose that leverage, then they don't have use for them anymore. So it seems to me that she is more at risk.
Let's hope that she's not. I will ask one more question that somebody sent, because I think it's a practical question for you.
I took the time, you can ask questions.
Sure. Okay. So someone is saying that she's in touch with team leaders from Women Wage Peace as well, and she's asking whether taking specific actions on behalf of your mother, do you think that will harm her or help her? I think they're looking for guidance, how much they should be interfering or intervening.
I don't want to be like a censor, or I can't control the internet, or she was a woman, her own woman, not only my mother. And my strategy, my activity is, I don't really talk in Israel to the Israeli press, because I see a lot of poison being directed at her because of her activities, and I don't want to be in that position where I defend my views because it's not relevant. I just want her back, and so that's my efforts. But everybody who feels close to her what can I say? It's appreciated, any effort being made.
Understood. And I hope that you're able to drown out any negative noise that comes your way. I think that's nobody, at least in our line of work, thinks that's a fair position to put you in. One journalist from Paris is I don't know if she's a journalist, somebody online. Of course, there's a lot of supporters that came online in addition to the journalists, is saying that she met your mother 4 days before October 4th, 4 days before October 7th, and was very impressed by her admirable personalities and engagement for peace. And she's also in her thoughts and prayers. We have another question from Reuters, I believe. Emily?
Hi, it's not a question. I'm just from Winnipeg, and I wanted to say that everyone in the community there, including myself, is just praying every day that she will come home safely, and that's all.
Thank you.
And we have a lot of nodding heads in the cubes online as well, so you can really see how much support you have. Another question: is there any communication to you suggesting that I don't know if you can answer this. It is your decision whether to answer this. CBC is asking if there is any communication to suggest that negotiations are currently in play.
From the formal negotiations, I hear only from the press. I don't have any inside information about the efforts being made from the Israeli government or the international governments.
Okay, I think our final question will be really what message would you like to leave with the world, given that we're 3 weeks in, and the stakes at play, and what is it that you want to communicate?
The attack on October 7th was vicious, really brutal, but it happened in a certain context of this region, of years and years of dehumanizing people from both sides. And we have been left alone, Israelis and Palestinians, to try to work this out for too long. And now we see that this is a global issue. This includes, Iran and Russia and the United States and Europe. And I want everybody to be invested in it, not only to avenge this attack, because it seems like this is what's happening now, and I don't think vengeance is a strategy, but to be invested in peace in this region, and we need help internationally.
I did promise to wrap up, but there is one last question from a journalist, a freelancer, asking if you know of any other peace activists who were impacted by this attack, whether kidnapped or killed, or larger family circles.
Yeah, of course, a lot.
Okay, we're happy to help with the context and resources after the call. I think we'll let Yonatan go now. Yonatan Zeigen, son of Vivian Silver, who was kidnapped on October 7th by Hamas inside of her home. Thank you specifically, Yonatan, for joining us. Again, our thoughts and prayers are with you, and thank you to everyone who joined on the line.
Thank you.